Love in a Time of Corona, episode 3, where we'll be discussing De Wetshof and its Limestone Hill Chardonnay.
Cool. So let's talk about the wine, De Wetshof Estate. So the main guy from De Wetshof is a guy called Dani de Wet, and he has been instrumental in getting Chardonnay or worthwhile Chardonnay into the country. So De Wetshof is, the farm is in Robertson, and it's perfectly suited for Chardonnay because of the limestone-rich soils that it has. It's superb for the Chardonnay grape, and this is what they've specialized in. They do a whole lot of wines, but Dani de Wet and De Wetshof is known for its Chardonnay and its site-specific Chardonnay. Now, why Dani de Wet is such an amazing character is that in the 70s, De Wetshof has been around for a while, but in the 70s, he was learning and he was studying winemaking and viticulture in Germany. And the clones of Chardonnay that we had available were terrible. And all the cuttings that were used to propagate further vines had leaf roll virus. So our Chardonnay wasn't in a good state. So what he did is him and a cohort of some other guys in the wine industry started smuggling Chardonnay vines into South Africa in their jackets, in chocolate boxes and all this kind of stuff. Really not against the law, because these vines needed to go through quarantine, and KWV was in charge then. And he got specific clones, especially from Burgundy. Chardonnay comes from France. It's the Burgundy whites are made out of Chardonnay. Anyway, him and a couple of others smuggled these clones into South Africa and started growing them in Robertson. When they were bust, they got brought into a commission, and they had to try and explain themselves. But what Dani de Wet did was he actually worked with the guys, and he said, you know what, the turnaround time to get new grape varieties, and at that stage in the 70s, it was only Chenin and Cruchet Blanc, which was Cape Riesling. It was a different type of Riesling, but it was called Cape Riesling, was around. And he worked very hard at working with the guys to improve the vine, first of all, the quality of vines, and then get a greater turnaround. And he managed to get those Burgundy clones, and he was the first in the country to get the clones, which most of the Chardonnays use now. I know that in the Hemelanada, what's a guy from Bouchard, Peter Finlayson, he managed to get some from California. So, but Dani de Wet and that gang opened up the doorways to getting better Chardonnay in the country. Why Robertson? As I mentioned, the limestone soils. Limestone is very alkali. What you want in wine is a high acidity, because that keeps the wine, it provides the backbone, it provides the structure. The wines made in Burgundy, the white wines, as opposed to red wines, have this limestone, and it's limestone on clay. They have Cameridian soils and all this kind of stuff. So these soils are perfect, and I think that in Robertson, where De Wetshof is the highest concentration of lime in the country, limestone. And this bottle is called Limestone Hill. I'll tell you a bit about how they make their wines, or what he's trying to achieve with these wines. So he's been very instrumental that way. You'll see on the top of the bottle, there's something that says CVC. Now CVC is it's called the Cape Vintners classification, and there's a whole lot of rules on how to get that, and to get that, then there's only a certain number of farms that have achieved that CVC. There need to be site-specific wines. There needs to be an environmental sort of look at the wines. You're looking at quality over quantity, and there needs to be a history and heritage. De Wetshof is third generation. There's not many farms around that have had 3 generations of winemaking. Lots of farms that have had multi-generation of ownership, but 3 generations of winemaking. So he's had to be site-specific, look at the quality. And if you look at De Wetshof wines, you will see that they don't just make the Limestone Hill. They actually make 6, maybe even 8 different Chardonnays that all come from different sites. And what he's trying to show, and what he tries to do, is from an education perspective, but also trying to as I suppose a marketing tool, he has all these different Chardonnays. So you'll get, so there's the Batelier, there's the Lesca, the Sight, the Finesse, the Bon Vallon, and the Limestone Hill. That's 6 different Chardonnays, and they all come from different sites, which is pretty amazing. Now, Chardonnay is a category that has only started in South Africa from maybe the 80s, but definitely post-apartheid, with the Hemelanada Valley. I know Clayton will know a lot about this. The Hemelanada post-apartheid, people could start making wine that were market-focused instead of production-focused and having to be sold to KWV. And that's where a lot of the farms started happening in Elgin, Hemelanada, down in Hermanus. And they've got cool climate. Their Chardonnays, they are cool climate. This Chardonnay is limestone. It's got the heat. It's in Robertson. You also get very good Chardonnays made in Stellenbosch because of aspect. And you can get some cool climate Chardonnays made in Constantia. South Africa, in terms of the New World, is making the most old world style of Chardonnays. We are really, really on top of our game in Chardonnay. You get Australian Chardonnays that are heavy, often very wooded and buttery. And you get American Chardonnays, which are the same. Maybe New Zealand are making more classically made Chardonnays, but they're not really that known, not as well as known as their Sauvignon Blanc or their Pinot Noir. Yeah, so that's the Limestone Hill. When you look at Chardonnay as a grape, remember I mentioned with the Chenin Blanc, it's a neutral grape. So it's largely impacted by the wine making as to what flavors you're going to get. Now, Chardonnay is a completely different profile to the Chenin Blanc, but it's also a neutral grape. So you get it made with oak. You get it going through malolactic fermentation. You get it stirred on the lees. You get all of those things. And actually, I would say that when you're buying Chardonnay, they're all different categories because they taste so different. And you'll find that your cheaper Chardonnays are the ones that aren't oaked, that haven't had all of this other winemaking techniques done to them. And if they're unoaked, they've got a different profile. Maybe you would have heard of ABC, anything but Chardonnay. I understand people are tired of Chardonnay, but it's so diverse that you can find something. And when people say to me, oh, anything but Chardonnay, I'll say, okay, come, let's have this. And they'll say, oh, that's delicious. And say, what is it? And I'll say, it's a Chardonnay. And they go, oh. So, but I'll take it back because anything but that. I remember when we were in the restaurants in London, someone said they don't drink Chardonnay because we had a New World wine list and said we don't drink Chardonnay, we only drink Burgundy. And I didn't say anything, but I was like, what's the same grape? Anyway, so Chardonnay is heavier than Sauvignon Blanc and the Chenin Blanc. It's got a bigger weight fill. So if you think of full cream milk versus skim milk, it's got a fuller flavor. It's usually buttery because it often goes through malolactic fermentation. That's a type of fermentation used by bacteria which changes the sour lactic acid and malic acid to lactic acid, the more milky acid. It's got higher alcohol, usually if you feel it in the back of the throat. And the fruit profile of these, of Chardonnays, it can vary, but it's more citrus. You get melons and citrus. Sometimes you get white stone fruit. And a lot of the cooler climate and old world styles of Chardonnay will give you like a flintiness or wet stone flavor. It's quite hard to describe it. You'll know it when you if I tell you wet stone, you go, yeah, last time I had wet stone, it wasn't so delicious. But yeah, you do get different types of descriptors that actually ring true. It's almost like the smell of wet after it's rained on the pavement. This Chardonnay, so Limestone Hill, comes from a little hill which got the biggest concentration of limestone on the Wetshof. It's got such an intense smell to it. I've tasted it now. I opened it earlier. There's no oaking in this. So those people who want the heavy oak, there's absolutely no oaking, but it's still got, the reason why is because this limestone produces such concentration of fruit and such a high acidity. And this is in a warm region. And I pick up apples and I pick up peaches and I pick up sort of like, I don't know if it's a lemon or a lime citrus when I pick up, yeah. So, but for me, it's an intense wine and it's heavier. When you put it in your mouth, There's no part of your mouth or your tongue that doesn't feel its intensity. So for me, that's a very good wine. This is the cheapest out of all the De Wetshof Chardonnays. It's, but it's got such good international acclaim. You know, there's a guy called Robert Parker, and he's put this on the map as well by saying it's one of the top 99% Chardonnays in the world. So, yeah, that's where we are. De Wetshof, I don't know if you've ever been there. The building at De Wetshof is created and made by the same, it's made in the same style as the Koopmans house on Strand Street. So, and if you go there, it's absolutely beautiful. And they make a whole lot of other wines. So it's a good place to stop. Whenever I go to Robertson, I stop at De Wetshof and I stop at Springfield. So that's it. Chardonnay, yeah, it's a classic variety. And it can be, as I said, it can be made in so many different styles. Donnie's sons now are doing the viticulture and the winemaking, and he oversees it. So he's won lots of awards. He's won winemaker awards. They've the wines have won awards. So don't be fooled. I mean, I think this is about 100 Rand a bottle. And for some, that's expensive. But for bang for your buck, this is a really, really good wine. Cool. That's my little blurb. I'm sure other stuff will come up. This is a screw cap, so I don't have to talk about cork again. Yeah, any question?
Harry, I've got 2 questions. I just wanted to know, who's Robert Parker?
Robert Parker's an international wine critic, wine judge, wine scorer from the States. And he became so popular that if he gave a wine a big score, like out of 100, if he gave it a 95, or if he mentioned the wine, that wine would be, that winery wouldn't have problems in terms of commercial success. Basically, he could change the dynamics of people's profitability. But and he's been around for a long time. You know, he's fundamentally shifted wine appellations. Some people were making wines out of an appellation, which is basically the rules of the region. He liked the wine, and it became a cult wine. It just becomes a cult wine. That's the power that he has. He's slowed down, but there's other people like Tim Atkin. No one's really got the power that he had, but these international critics are amazing. Tim Atkin gave our Canon Corp Paul Sour, which is a Bordeaux blend 2015, 100 points, which is awesome coming from a UK Master of Wine international winery. And there's not many 100 points to get handed out. So we are making some good wines.
Harry, how do the points work?
Okay, so ratings are very, very dynamic. First of all, there are so many different ratings. You can rate out of 20, you can rate out of 100, you can have 5 stars, you can have 3 stars, and so the whole thing about ratings, in an education environment, you usually rate out of 20. And if you're doing that kind of rating, you're rating, a 14 is where you'll say the wine below that is faulty. So it's not really, you don't use the whole scoring range. Scoring ratings now, when you're actually looking in the magazines and you're looking at stuff, are rated out of 100. Again, it all depends what you're trying to rate and the objectives behind it. So the different competitions aren't comparing apples with apples. That's why it's nice to have an international guy come over and give us 100 points. So when you're looking at a rating generally, now, you know, the old Mutual Trophy Show will give you different scores for different categories, and they've all got different things. But when you're looking in the magazines, like if you're looking what Christian Eads does, he's a local guy who does it, and you're looking at some of the international guys. And 88, that's between 86 and 88 is probably a commercial wine. Below that, it starts getting faulty. Good wines are 88, 89, 90, and you're starting to get really into the good quality stuff between 92, 94, 95. 96 to 100 is immaculate wines. And that's why the way I sort of look at it. But again, you know, it needs calibration. It's very hard. I can compare one score of my score with another score of my scores because I've got a certain bias towards things, and I'm more, it's like marking exam papers, you know. I might be more generous with my marks than other people. So you always need to do the calibration of these things, understand those calibrations, understand the biases. So maybe I prefer South African wine to a French wine. And also, the whole thing with marking, which I find all these ratings, there's 2 things that bother me. The thing is that it's been shown that people who do the scoring of wines, and they usually score them on quality, and I'll go through that just now, is that you will score a wine better if you're having a fun time, if you're engaged, if you're in a good mood, than if you're not. So, and if you've just eaten onions and a hamburger, it's not as good as if you've got a fresh, I don't know, it's a whole, what's it called? There's a whole psychology towards tasting and enjoying wine and appreciating wine. And yes, some of the professionals are good at putting that aside, but the tests have shown that they've had the same wine over 3 different tastings and given them different scores. So there's all this bias stuff. The second thing that bothers me is that it's now become, instead of just giving an independent score of the wines, it seems to be becoming a marketing thing. And so you're starting to see ratings creep or inflation. So, you know, last year you gave all the wines 92. Now this year you want to sell your book or whatever, so you give some 93. And now we're getting 100s. I mean, what happens after 100? You can't get better than a wine, ever. Sounds silly to me. Anyway, that's just my view. You can use it, but don't say Harry said it. Just say I thought it up or something.
Harry,
Yeah.
in terms of Chardonnay, I just wanted to ask, food-wise, pairing, what would you recommend?
Yeah, Chardonnay is amazing. It depends on the style. You get your wooded, your unwooded. So the citrus and the full bodiness of it makes it go very well with fish and chicken. And when you get it wooded, there's nice woods, can go with pork, can go with duck. I even sometimes have Chardonnay with sort of lamb. Very nice with pastas. But you're looking at citrus fruit mainly. So whatever you make with citrus. I enjoy this kind of Chardonnay with sushi. I'll eat it. I'll eat all the sushi in the house with this. I'll drink all the wine with sushi as well.
Harry, what's your favorite Chardonnay then?
Oh, I've just told you how many there are and how many different styles. I'm a big fan of the Johnson clan. I like Ataraxia. I like Sumari. I like all the Hiemelinada. There's a lot of very, very good Chardonnays there. I like...
So, Harry, you're saying cold climate then?
Yeah, I like cold climate. Very much so. I like Ruconstanches as well, which is also cool climate. I do like these ones too.
Very quick question with regards to acidic soils. You said wine, the whites like acidic soils.
Yeah, no,
whites.
like alkali soils. So it generally translates that if the soil's alkali, it creates more acidic wines.
Okay, because the limestone would be alkaline, but that would create an acidic grape. I'm with you.
Correct. The reason why you want acidity, I did mention that it actually creates a backbone, it holds the wine together and all of those good things. But also, it sort of means a lower pH. With a lower pH, it means that your sulfur dioxide and your preservatives work with less, you don't have to put so much in. So it protects the wine a lot more.
Listen, you mentioned the Burgundy earlier.
Oh.
And I think you said that the Burgundy is the same as a Chardonnay. Is that what you said?
I said that the Burgundy is made out of Chardonnay, white Burgundy. There's a few Burgundy.
Oh, I see. So you get a red Burgundy as well, right?
A red Burgundy is made out of Pinot Noir, so it's the same as the Hiemelinada. There are some subcategories. There are some nuances to this. So in Burgundy, you'll get one small called Appellation Brie or whatever. It's just below Chablis, which does Sauvignon Blanc. And I know because I was at a lunch in Mayfair, and I knew everything about wine. And the guy said, "This is a Burgundy," and I said, "Oh, it's a Chardonnay." And the guy said, "No, it's a Sauvignon Blanc." And I argued with him all the way through lunch, and then he showed me, and I felt like a complete tit. And there's another. There's another grape, and I can't remember what it is called again. That is also found. It's a white grape that's found in Burgundy. I'll find it later and let you know. And Pinot Noir is the red grape, but if you go further down in Burgundy, it's a separate region, but it's also classified as Burgundy. You get Gamay in the Beaujolais region. And I love the Beaujolais cruise. It's great. Lovely one.
Another question was, when you say wooded, do they? I mean, I've heard they physically put oak into the barrels. That's
so oaking can happen. The quality wines are going to use French oak, and you must remember that you can get the amount of extraction of oak depends on how you use your barreling regime. So you can have heavily charred, medium charred, low charred barrels. You can have new barrels which will extract more flavor. Think of a new tea bag versus second use tea bag, third use tea bag, fourth use. You can use second full, third full, fourth full barrels. After that, the barrels start to not give any more flavor into the wine, but they do give sort of micro-oxygenation. You are allowed to add oak chips. You are allowed to add sawdust and all of this kind of stuff to give some sort of flavors. But what I find in those wines is that it's not as integrated. So it actually starts to stand apart, and you start to feel like you're eating on a chipboard with those wines. What do you think? Do you like it?
Yeah,
I like it.
I think it's fantastic.
Anything but Chardonnay, huh?
Yeah, but
Harry,
Yeah.
is it true that this wine is actually named after that song, I'm a Limestone Cowboy?
Yes.
Checking.
I can't remember who sang it. Was it made by, the band was called Bunch of Grapes or something?
Harry, with your amazing credentials now, will you be somebody that can rate a wine and that people can then basically base their choices on, like this other guy that gives George Parker or somebody?
Bob.
So I'm not going to be at that level. I want to do there's a rigorous wine judging course to Michael Fridjon and Joburg, but it's daunting. So yes, I can rate wines. I'm pretty accurate when it comes to the scoring of wines, but a lot of this is to do with credibility. You've had to put in the time before people actually believe that you are worth your salt. So the one thing that I have done when I started Harry's Big Wine Adventure is I wouldn't rate the wines, but I would post about the wines that I liked. I will never post about a wine I don't like. And through that, people get an understanding of these are wines worth trying without actually putting a number to it.
Harry, out of interest, when you chose these wines that we're tasting now, the first lot of wines, what made you choose these wines? Was it just purely because they were available and easy to get, or how did you do your first selection?
So my first criteria was, could we get it online? So I tried Pick and Pay. It was about accessible. So I looked at Pick and Pay, I went through the lists, and I actually went through the online list, which is a lot smaller than actually what you can get in the shop, or you could get in the shop. And then I looked at the wines. I usually choose wines where I've got a good feeling, I've got stories I've spent some time with. So if I don't know the wine or don't understand the wine, doesn't matter how many awards it's got, I'd rather choose wines that I can talk about or that I want to learn about. So the Vinologist I never tasted before, and that was interesting for me to learn a little bit. And then I also try to keep the price at about 100 Rand or below. So that's quite a hard thing to do, you know.
Harry?
Yes, Bev.
Harry? Yes, hi. How long can you keep the different white wines? Because we tend to keep them for too long, drink all the new ones because we fancy them. And then I find that I've got a whole lot that are maybe a little bit beyond the pale. What do you think?
These are nice.
So I'm just talking about white wines here. 90% of the wines you'll ever buy, white wines, are meant to be drunk within a year or two. That's not to say that you can't keep them. I've got a sherbet load of wines that are probably going off here. The way to look at wines is you're looking at wines with high acidity, or with sugar, or with oak, or with all three. So Rieslings you can keep for a longer time, although they never have oak. Chardonnays and Sauvignon Blancs and Chenin that have got a bit of oak, you can keep for 5 years easily if you store it properly. Everyone says, how long can you keep the wines? You need to store the wines properly. And there's a debate as to what that looks like. I can tell you, my place isn't the best storage, so I'm a bit worried about them. I might have to try and hit them hard in these 21 days just to make sure they don't go off. But yeah, so you're looking for wines with high acidity, and you're looking wines with fruit. And please, you can only store wines that are made well. If you store a badly made wine, by keeping it, it's not going to get better. It's going to get shitter. So it's only the very good wines that are in harmony, balanced, and all that good stuff. And they've got acidity to keep the wine, and they've got fruit that will last. So the Chardonnays are good. Chardonnay is a good one. Chennon's a very good one. Chenin changes these two wines start to change. They start to become honeyed and beautiful. But there is a stage where they just then drop off.
Yeah. So this one you'd say up to 5 years.
Yeah, I've had older limestone hills. This hasn't got oak, but it's got concentration of fruit and acid. I wouldn't drink it past 5 years. Why? It's perfectly delicious right now.